Okay, so in this tutorial we're going to look at creating irregular shapes using the pen tool and how to create lines as well. So first of all, we select the pen tool. If you click and hold, you see you've got various pen tool options. We're just going to focus on mainly the pen tool itself and the convert vertex tool, which converts between a straight line anchor point and a curved anchor point, or a Bezier anchor point as it's sometimes called. So again, we've got stroke and fill selected here. I'm just going to change the fill a bit. So if you remember, if we click rather on the swatch itself, if we click on the word fill, we can change the settings here. So change it from a gradient to a solid colour or no colour. We're going to go with no colour at the moment. We're just going to focus on the stroke at the moment. So if we click to create an anchor point and then click to create a second anchor point, you'll see that it places this stroke, what's called a stroke, on the path that we've just created between the two anchor points. So these are straight line anchor points we've created. To create a curved anchor point, we click and drag and we get these two handles come off the what's called the Bezier anchor point or curved anchor point. If we want to change that and make it a straight line anchor point again, if we hold down Control, click on the anchor point, it'll convert it back to straight. Or likewise, if we click again, Control click again, we can convert it back to a curve. So we can carry on clicking. So we're just going to create a kind of fairly random irregular shape. Have an experiment with the different curves on straight line anchor points. Okay, and as you know from when we've used the pen tool in Animate, and if you've used Illustrator as well, we can't fill this shape until we've closed the path. Okay, so to close the path, we mouse over the first anchor point and we see the little circle, click, and that closes the path. Okay, alright, so we've created our shape. Okay, so once we've created our shape, if we go inside the layer here, so expand the layer and go inside the contents, you'll see here we've got, you'll see shape 1. If you expand that, we've got path 1, expand that, and you've got path here, so we can use this path property to keyframe the paths themselves and animate those. If we click on path 1 here, that activates the anchor points and the paths again. So if we still want to continue editing our shape, we can do. So once we clicked on path 1, if you mouse over any of the anchor points, you can click on them and adjust them. Okay, so if you want to slightly edit the shape, you can actually, if you hold down Control and mouse over the anchor points, you can remove anchor points as well if you want. Now, if we want to decide we want to change any of these anchor points from straight to curved or vice versa, this time we hold down Alt, okay, rather than Control. So Alt and mouse over the anchor point, and again you've still got the option to convert between curved and straight line anchor points. Okay, so you can continue editing that way if you want. What's also quite useful here, if we want to, so if I hold down Alt again and convert this anchor point from straight to curved, if I keep Alt held down, what I can do is I can actually, so if I don't hold down Alt and I move the handles here, it's what's called a continuous handle here, which manipulates both sides of the curves from both sides of the anchor point. But if I only want to manipulate the curve on one side of the anchor point, hold down Alt and then click on that, the handle I want to manipulate, the side I want to manipulate, it will just manipulate that side, so that's worth knowing about. Okay, so I'm going to add the fill back in now, because I think, well, actually I can add it this way. So if I click on the fill text here and just click on solid colour, that will fill it with the orange that we had selected, and then we can OK that, so we've got more of a solid shape. The other thing that's just worth knowing about, so if we click and hold on the pen tool, you'll see this add vertex tool. If I select that, we can actually add anchor points after we've created the shape if we want to modify it still further. And again, holding down Alt, we can manipulate that anchor point. Okay. Again, if we hold down Control, we can select the move tool, and we can actually grab the anchor point and move the whole thing. Okay, so there's various things we can do there, or like I said before, just manipulate one side of the anchor point. Okay, so now if we turn to animation, if we look at this path property I mentioned earlier, if we click on the timer next to the path property, that'll insert a keyframe. We know this process pretty well now. And then if we move the playhead to the first frame and we manipulate the shape, so what we're going to do is actually transform the shape itself. It's going to morph into something else. So again, we can use all those methods that I've just mentioned to change the shape. Okay, so just play around with that. So again, I'm holding down Alt to manipulate the anchor points, convert them between straight line and curved, or holding down Alt to manipulate just one of the handles, or holding down Control to actually shift and move one of the any of the anchor points. So there we go, we've got transformed our shape. So if I just scrub the needle back, you'll see that the computer just fills in tweens between those two keyframes. So we've got our shape kind of morphing from one thing into another there. Okay, we'll just put in maybe a third keyframe here, so we'll move to second here, and again manipulate a little bit further. It's a bit of a weird shape. There we go, and then again you'll see that we've got the three distinct shapes, and then the computer is tweening between the two, and we've got this kind of morphing effect. Okay, so if we just play that through, drag the player to 0 and spacebar, and you can see how that kind of quite smoothly morphs through. Okay, so that's animating a shape. I'm just going to delete that now. We're going to move on to something else. So I just wanted to show you how to, when you're dealing with straight lines. Okay, so we're going to draw in a horizontal line. So if you click Create an Anchor Point, hold down Shift and click, and that constrains it to a horizontal line. Okay, now we want to deselect this. We don't want to, if we click again, we'll have a continuation of this line, which we don't want. We want it to be a line that stands on its own. So we hold down Control and click. Okay, that will deselect that particular shape. Okay. Okay, so if I go down to the layer here, it's automatically created a shape layer. Go into Content, you can see we've got Shape 1 here. If I just expand that as well, you can see that's got its own set of properties. Now, if I now I've deselected this line, what I want to do is click and create a second shape. So I'm going to create a vertical line now, again holding down Shift to constrain that. Okay, you can see that it's automatically created a second shape sublayer here. Okay, and again, if I just hold down Control and click. Actually, if I click on off the composition just on the layer panel here, to be sure I've deselected everything. Okay. Okay, now a better way to do this is kind of not really a particularly great cross this, so I'm going to delete Shape 2. And if we go back to Shape 1 and press Ctrl D, we will duplicate this exact shape. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to just expand the properties for Shape 2. If I go to Transform Shape 2 here, and down to Rotate, what I want to do is just rotate it by 90 degrees. So it's a right angle. Okay, so now we have a kind of perfect right angle. So to precisely position that, if I go to Position now, okay, and just adjust the X property here, I can just sort of incrementally slowly shift that across to the center. And again, I can do the same with the first stroke as well. Just tidy that up a bit. So we're going to shape 1 and transform shape 1, and I want to adjust the Y value, the vertical value of the cross line up, so that's pretty much centered on the anchor point now. So it's a more precise way of doing it. Okay, so just to, I know there's lots of sub layers there, so just to compress those again. So basically we've got shape 1, shape 2, we've gone into each of them, gone to transform, and just adjusted the position there and the rotation on the second one. Okay. Now what I want to do is group these, sorry, I'll expand that again. I want to group these together so they become one shape. So if I shift click on the two and right click and select group shapes, so again this is familiar from Animate, grouping objects together. Now I want it to, that's become one object. Okay, so if I just expand that group layer now, you can see we've still got the two shapes in there, but we can apply transforms to the group now. So if I expand transform here, you can see if I adjust property, then the whole thing moves, rotation, etc. So I can play around with those, and that will be applied to the whole object now. Okay, but just remembering, I can still adjust the shape separately as well. I can either adjust the transform for the group here, or I can still go back into either of the shapes and transform them separately. So going into the transform for the individual shape and adjusting that if I want to. Okay, so the option's still there. So likewise, I can still adjust the paths as well. So if I go into either of the shapes here, so if I go into shape 2 here, remember the path layer here, so I can go in there and I can still adjust that. So if I click path 1, and then I can mouse over that particular path, and sorry, it's this one, isn't it? And adjust that. So I can click on either of the anchor points and and adjust them. I think it's worth noting that when you're actually adjusting anchor points, once you've drawn something, it's probably best selecting the move tool, and then you can easily mouse over any of the anchor points and adjust them. Okay.